Assalamu alaikum viewers, I'm Raja Faisal with the debate. The usual anchor Sana is a little late today to make it to the studio, and I have with me as always Farrukh Pitafi, senior analyst. He has always been with us, and today we will be initiating our show. And today's topics, we have two topics with us. Number one is, of course, we are highlighting Gaza situation and where do the peace settlement go ahead. And as we are seeing that the Secretary Blinken is in Middle East for the talks, for the peace talks, and world is hoping that peace should be, of course, imposed in Middle East right now for the better of the people of Gaza, because people of Gaza are the ones that are ultimately suffering from this menace. And the second topic, of course, we are highlighting the elections, the very important election of the world, that is of course, U.S. presidential election, where things are heading towards. Of course, we will be discussing in the second phase of our program today. With us, we have two guests. Karim is joining us from, he's obviously foreign affairs expert. He's joining us from UK. And then we have Dr. Jamil Khan. He's a former ambassador of Pakistan. And of course, he's with us as well. He's very regular with us. And of course, we will go ahead with today's program. Dr. Jamil, first of all, of course, I'll come towards you. What is the latest on peace in Gaza and the talks which are, of course, anticipated by the world over? And of course, this is entirely about people of Gaza. Where do we stand right now? And according to you, where could we see peace heading towards in coming days?
Unfortunately, they are not very good news. If we review what has happened last about 24 hours or even 48 hours, or if we stretch the time to last about 15 days, we don't have really much material or much points, much logic, evidence to rest our hopes that the peace negotiation could be reached to some kind of a positive direction. So yesterday's statement, which was available to the world this morning, the ceasefire effort by Blinken, that is on the card, and he is there while meeting with the president who doesn't have any power in Israel. So while meeting with the president, he after the meeting, he made that statement. He was to meet Netanyahu. Not sure whether the meeting has now taken place while we're talking or not. But he says that the efforts are being made just to ensure that the heating up of the regional possible war is controlled, and the regional tension due to Gaza war is controlled. But at the same time, Hamas and Netanyahu, they are far apart. So far as the truth is concerned, because Netanyahu is very clear in thoughts right from the very beginning. He has the consistency that he wants to finish the job, and finishing the job means that he wants to continue attacking Gaza people, Palestinian people. It's basically total cleansing of the Palestinian and Gaza. So that he wants to achieve that, basically. And then if we see it from his standpoint, from the Israeli standpoint, and from the Prime Minister of Israel's point of view, it appears that, the only way he can achieve.
Ambassador Saab, I'm glad that you spoke about regional conflict or the possibility of that. We know that the U.S. has at least some leverage with Netanyahu government, and that's why they're protesting them. How do you see the possibility of U.S. also exerting some kind of pressure on countries like Iran to be restrained as well? Because it takes two to tango, right? Yeah. So is there a possibility that on the other side also, there is some kind of mechanism? Because last when we checked, there wasn't any kind of communication between the U.S. and Iran.
Still, there is no direct communication, but like last time, once the United States has mediated after the attack of Israel on the 1st of April, on the Syrian Council, on the Iranian Consul General, Consulate General in Syria. It was from 1st April to 18th April. There was a very intense diplomacy, and indirectly the messages were conveyed to the United States through Oman, through Switzerland, and through France. They were very active in it, besides other regional countries. So that played its part. And Iran, in fact, we have to bear in our mind that neither Iran nor Hezbollah, they are aiming to escalate, but they are quite well prepared to retaliate and to respond if the peace plan is not really achieved. And Iranians were very clear in their thoughts. It's their supreme leader, it's the Supreme Council. They have made very clear statements that they would avenge the attack on Ismail Hania. And they did it during ceremony. There was very intense diplomatic work, and due to which it was a calibrated, it was calculated, it was negotiated attack in Erbil base of Iraq, where Iran had retaliated. And last time also it was calibrated, negotiated, and calculated attack which Iran had made on Israel, and that was basically because of the question.
You have raised an excellent point, and that too is, of course, related to the escalation, and that we saw around 3 months ago that there was a sort of attack by Iranian side on Israel. And I wanted to go towards Umar related to that. And owing to the fact that on ground, of course, the situation is bad in terms of diplomatic situation. Reason being, we have a casualty, and that too is of someone who was the man for Hamas if ever somebody wanted to talk peace. And of course, we know that now when Hanieh is not there, we will be having other faces from within Hamas. First of all, Umar, if you can, of course, highlight who's taking the lead from Hamas side, and at the same time, what do Iranians have the role to play in these talks? And when they do talk, will they be in a position to, of course, ignore the attack which was carried out by Mossad, Israeli Mossad, within Iran itself? And that too, of course, it's a challenge to their sovereignty.
And Umar, could you also give us a roundup on your assessment, like Ambassador Saab did, of this situation? How optimistic are you that there is a possibility of a breakthrough?
Regarding Raja Saab's question, it's undoubtedly Sinwar who is the main negotiator or the main player on Hamas side. And it will be his decision making now. And we know for a fact and from history that he is a tough negotiator, and he will try to play out his cards from a rigid perspective. Iran, I think, has in a manner agreed with the regional mediators that it will hold on its retaliation or revenge to give the ceasefire talks a chance. But yeah, I sort of agree with Ambassador Saab's point of view that the real problem or obstacle in the road of a ceasefire is the political goalposts which have been enacted by the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And the real problem, which is again coming up in these negotiations as well, is that in these negotiations, still there is no condition of a permanent ceasefire. So the mediators and most probably the U.S. is talking about a ceasefire, but not a permanent ceasefire, not a permanent withdrawal of the Israeli military from Gaza Strip, also not allowing Gazans in south to move back towards north. and also there is tension in terms of Israeli military maintaining presence in the Philadelphia corridor. So these are some points which I think wouldn't have made progress even if Ismail Haniyeh was around, because this means that the Israeli military basically takes a week of rest, and then they start pounding the Gaza Strip again when they like. Of course, any sort of respite is or should be welcomed, but this doesn't really address the issue at the base of all this, which is a permanent ceasefire. So I am not very, although there was a meeting between Netanyahu and Blinken, which I'm reading went on for 3 hours. So there is some serious push. But will this mature finally? I am not very hopeful as well.
Yeah, Farrukh, I wanted to come towards you related to the same aspect. During, recent times, especially since more than a week, we have been hearing different, narratives coming out from within Middle East and, of course, from the American side as well. If we look at America, there were narratives that maybe Biden wants to leave on a very positive note, and he is, of course, willing to do whatever it takes to bring peace within Middle East and especially Gaza, and Gazans are less suffering in future. If we look at Hamas, as Umar has rightly pointed out, that they want the ultimate peace within themselves, and of course they don't want Israel to carry out the kind of activities they have been doing even before October last year. They have been bombing every second week, third week, they have been bombing the places within Gaza. They don't want that. And if we talk about Israel, Netanyahu's setup, of course they are demanding the total annihilation of Hamas itself. But when, of course, they pursue that, what they do is they do indiscriminate bombing of places where normal innocent kids, children, of course women and elderly, they are getting killed. Where do you see all of these things heading towards, number one, and number two, whether US is able to convince Israel, when I say Israel I mean Netanyahu, to of course come to a conclusion rather than going for or carrying on with this genocide?
Right. Thank you very much, Raja Faisal, for this question. Let me actually begin by the thing that you actually pointed out. I think lasting peace opportunity for this administration has already passed, because this president, although he is from the party that is likely to win the next election, but he is not running again. So there's going to be some kind of policy shift. On the other side, you have Donald Trump, who has very vocally expressed his support for Netanyahu. So these guys are not going to actually, provide any leeway for any kind of permanent negotiated settlement. There can be a pause, there can be some kind of exchange. Even this position or situation can be dissolved or resolved to a small extent. Now the biggest problem is not, any other player. Iran is there, the Arab countries are there, of course, and Hamas is a player also. But the biggest problem right now is Benjamin Netanyahu. Because we know that Bibi Netanyahu is not very popular. This is something that I've been saying from day one. This whole talk of annihilation of the entire organization called Hamas is not possible. It was from get-go, it was an abstract title, goal, and the purpose was to extend the war as much as possible. Why would that be? Because if you actually focus on something that was immediate, right, the rescue of the hostages, that would have actually changed the direction of the debate. After that, the war would have very quickly ended, and what would you have left is a weak Netanyahu with a weak hardline, hard right coalition, and that's why they wouldn't want to do that. And then they actually went to Gaza. Here, the problem lies with both sides. Now, I'm not talking about Palestinians, I'm talking about Israelis, and I'm talking about Hamas. And that's why I keep on saying that we have to, investigate any possible link between the two, the Israeli government, particularly Netanyahu and Hamas, because every time there was a need for any kind of escalation, Hamas somehow provided it. This time what is happening? Every time they bomb a hospital, a school, a children's nursery, or whatever you may call it, the excuse is that there are Hamas people hiding there. And we know it for a fact what exactly they are actually after. They are after the Gaza land, and they want to actually go for total ethnic cleansing. So this is what is happening. I don't think there's any kind of breaks, but I was listening to one of the former advisors of Shimon Peres, and he said that the US knows what to do when it comes to Netanyahu. You keep on arguing with him, you keep on asking him and treating him that he should be doing anything in this direction or that. You have the lever, you have the control. Now this president is also essentially a lame duck president, right? So he has the capacity to deprive or take bold decisions on Israel and deny them the kind of weapons they need. And what will happen? What is the fallout? He has nothing to lose. So this was a great argument made by an Israeli, but unfortunately, it seems that because Israeli influence within the US is big, especially because of AIPAC and because of their influence with the hard-right Christian fundamentalists. Because of that, they managed to somehow skew the field in such a way, the Israelis, that Americans don't get the kind of leeway to actually do something substantial. Mersheimer's book on Israeli lobby is great in that context. It explains you what is the infrastructure of this kind of manipulation.
Yeah, and Dr. Jamil, that's a very good point, which of course Farrukh has highlighted, especially related to Israel being after Gaza land. I mean, I would agree to Farrukh because what happened was right after the October episode took place. I think 3 or 4 days after that, I was part of a debate in which one of the participant, he was actually sitting in Tel Aviv, and what he was trying to implicate there is that he simply said that there is a country called Egypt that is nearly getting bankrupt. Why can't we actually talk to that country to, of course, take all of these Gazans there, and they can, of course, inhibit them in their own country, and we can settle Hamas in Gaza. This has been, of course, talk from since the day one. And in reply, of course, I said to him at that time, straight away, I said to him that it is ethnic cleansing, it's a war crime, and it's a genocide which you are going to take, do in Gaza at that time. But now, if we look at this situation, sending all of the Gazans to Egypt. Egypt happens to be one of the pivotal countries that is involved in peace talks, and they want peace to be restored in Gaza right now. Where do you see Egypt's position right now, and whether if Egypt is posed with this kind of deal in which Egypt is asked to inhibit all of these Gazans in their own country, will they be doing that, or ethically would it be possible that the Americans or any other countries from the other side that are allies with Israel, they can actually ask for these kind of terms?
No, that's right. I think there are some traces available in the recent past that they did ask about it, and the Israelis had put up their request through the United States leadership, and they themselves, Israelis themselves, had done that. They had requested Egypt to allocate a chunk of land in Sinai so that the Gazans could be settled there. Let me go to the history. But before that, things in coming few days seem to be very alarming. I'll come back to that, Burns, and I'll rely my argument once I come back to that point. Is Blinken says it's a decisive movement to get the hostages home, and try and have the ceasefire, put things on a better path. So those are the diplomatic part. The first part of his statement, which he made today morning or yesterday evening, was a decisive moment. Yes, it's a decisive moment. Let me go back to your question. Now, if we rely our argument on the history, starting from, I normally quote this, 1897 was the first convention of the Zionism, and once it was established in Switzerland, and thereafter they had some plans, they had some there are some goals, and they have achieved most of the goals in the Zionist leadership, which means that they increase their influence. And you heard Farrukh argument about the John Mearsheimer book, and it dilates upon very clearly about what has been described, and that says that how the influence in the Western country, and more importantly, the United States, was really built in the last almost one decade. That is media, the financial side, the State Department, all other institutions which matter, that is under full influence as per that book. And of course, if we study, we'll also agree with that most of the point. And that gives us the answer why Israel is being provided the cover. And it's not my thoughts. This is the statement just about 3-4 days ago, which Sinwar, the Hamas leader, has given a statement that it's just all these efforts what they are showing now is to provide cover to the Israel to carry on its genocide. And how it is very, very logical from Sinwar's side is that on the 10th of June, they agreed the Security Council resolution was passed. UN High Commissioner there in UNRWA, he made the statement that yes, peace process, what UN has passed the resolution, and more importantly, Joe Biden's own 3-phase peace plan, which Sinwar and Hania also agreed with to implement. And they are now even saying that, okay, if you go back to that, what Joe Biden had offered, we agree with it. But Netanyahu says, no, we will not, we should continue and carry out after the release of the hostages, the remaining 110, will continue with our military operations. Now, let's go back to the history of, so that we have a better debate and understanding about it. 1948, what happened? There were about 554 villages. They were razed to ground, and all that population, they were pushed into this Gaza Strip, and in pushed into this part of the land of Palestinian. And then in 1967, they were further pushed into Gaza. So that's one part. Now, this is the effort, this is the excuse which Israel has found now, and now they are trying. They tried earlier, as I said, that they asked for Sinai land, which Hamas did not agree, and Egypt was also apparently reluctant. Now, this takes me to another point that yes, ethnic cleansing has not. This debate and the participants of this debate are saying and perhaps agreeing, but in the so many analysts, including what was quoted here, John Mearsheimer, also says the same thing, that yes, they are targeting for a complete ethnic cleansing, and that is from the military standpoint, that's the only way they can say that, okay, they have eliminated Hamas altogether. Otherwise, last 10 months, they have not been able to do that. So I leave this point over here and then come back to the point that this negotiation, on which now with the statement which I just quoted, this Blinken statement and Blinken's presence at this time in Israel, and then later on he'll be traveling to other neighboring countries like Egypt and perhaps Goa. And as I already quoted Shinwa, that he says that it's just providing cover to that. And then if we review all what has happened after the three phases peace plan of Joe Biden, there is not an iota of difference. Rather, the operation has further been enhanced. See what happened just about 17 days ago, how they bombarded, how they really killed the children and the TDM. There were 100 more than 100 people in just few moments. They killed them. So and then they are continuing it every day. So let's I think have bring into the discussion the point that okay, and if this negotiation fails, then what next? Now, Iran was very clear. Iran has given its very clear statement, although a lot of diplomatic work is going on, but it has become almost a compulsion for Iran to retaliate. What is going to be the intensity? What is going to be the scale of that retaliation? In my understanding, Iran would do it a limited retaliation, but more intense than what it had done it last time in retaliation to the attack on its consulate. So once that happens, Netanyahu has already alerted Israelis that now difficult time to come. So he has alerted them, and he's expecting that. Although apparently United States is asserting or asking that no escalation, but their deployment of their military asset, it demonstrates some other thing. It demonstrates that they are fully prepared to block Israel's retaliatory attack, and B, block those assets which Iran has and which it has built in the last 20 years, the proxies. It's not only Houthi Hezbollah. Yes,
Dr. Jamil, you have rightly put up that, of course, America has a role to play in this war which is going on. I just wanted to quickly go towards Umar. Umar, very quickly, of course, we know US is playing its role. What about the Europeans? Of course, we saw that this year was very important for Europe as well, because elections were taking place in Europe, especially if we talk about UK itself. UK's election, after UK's election, how do you see the mood in UK relating to Gaza situation right now, and whether will we be seeing any role played by UK in coming days? Because if we look at Spain, look at Norway or France, they had a very anti-Israel position in recent times.
And by the way, could you also add to this Netanyahu's game, particularly regarding Hamas? There are two leaders. One is a militant or military leader called Sinwar. The other one is a political leader, perhaps a moderate, called Hania. They choose to kill Hania rather than Sinwar, and now Sinwar is in charge. So do you think that they actually, by design, don't want any kind of de-escalation to take place?
Yeah, I'll start from this question, and I think I completely agree that Sinwar, as some of his media profiles, maybe they're a little bit exaggerated, but they all show that he's a very different kind of a man, and he, just like some of the people on the Israeli far right, he is in this for like a sort of an ultimate end of times struggle. And there is one thing which is very important, which gives an answer to this question as well, that has Hania been assassinated so that the war prolongs and it's not resolved. Now, Sinwar knows that these Israeli hostages, they are the critical piece or the card in his pocket. The day there is an agreement without a permanent ceasefire, without the withdrawal of the Israeli military, without a particular guarantee that Israel will not bomb, will not militarily invade Gaza, Sanwar will lose this card. If he releases these hostages without getting anything significant in return, what will happen? It will end all the political pressure on Netanyahu, and Netanyahu will then come back to his military tactics vis-a-vis Gaza, And the sort of political pressure right now he's facing from certain sections of the Israeli electorate, and particularly the families of the hostages, that will completely end. And as recent essays by Israeli historians like Umar Bartov and others have shown, that there is quite a lot of support within Israel against a militarized solution, not only just against Hamas, but all of Gaza. And so the mindset of a collective punishment has a larger acceptance within Israeli citizens. On the question of Europeans, I think there has been some movement within Britain, specifically when the British government decided to take back its challenge against the ICC decision. So now, if Netanyahu decides to come to UK, he can be actually arrested, hypothetically. And I think this is why, when the British Foreign Secretary recently went to Tel Aviv, he was humiliated by the Israeli Prime Minister, and he was not given an audience with him. But it's just the dynamics which are there within Washington. There are certain similar dynamics within the UK, and also that because of the domestic political situation, I don't think so that the current British government will really push hard on this front. But I think that the position has moved relatively from relatively to towards being more challenging towards Israel, or more critical of Israel from what the conservative government had been. But I still don't think how the British government can play a larger role in this, and they definitely will not go to an extent where they will openly antagonize Netanyahu.
Rightly pointed out, and of course that takes us to the second segment, talking about the elections.
Hang on, Raja Saab. Do you think that we are going to let you go without your comment on this matter? Make it quick, but
yes.
Make our comment. What do you think where Israel is, or this whole war is headed, and is there a possibility of peace? Your take also.
Farrukh, since obviously Ismail Haniyeh died, of course I was of the view that this is an opportunity for all of them, even for Israel itself as well, to end this war. End this war for the humanity, end this war for the people of Gaza. Eventually, ultimately, people of Gaza who are out there suffering, and they don't have even a roof on them. And of course, the only thing that is dropping on them is the bombs, Israeli bombs. Yeah. And I think all of the countries,
bombs and bullets.
Yeah, very sane steps should be taken. And that only step is to ultimate ceasefire. And after that, of course, everything can be discussed in terms of what are the terms and conditions and how the things should be moving ahead. But the very first thing that needs to be imposed, and that is ceasefire. And I think a country like US, it can play its role. It is the country that is actually sending arms to Israel, but at the same time, rest of the countries, powerful countries, they all need to, of course, highlight this in front of US more and more, and that US can play the role.
Allow me to actually just add one liner here, and to your pithy comment, and that is, while Netanyahu is barely politically surviving, this is also weakening Israel, this war, because the whole idea of Israel being an apartheid state has become very clear. So that will seriously damage Israel's interest also. Yeah. I hope that in coming days we see some improvement. Go ahead, sir.
Exactly. And now we head towards the second topic, and that too is related to, of course, US elections. Yeah. Why US elections are important? Because the whole story of Middle East, it would have its impact on, of course, US elections as well. Dr. Jamil, wanted to come towards you. Looking at the current situation, of course, initially we had the picture that Trump versus Biden re-election, but of course, that is not the case anymore. Kamala Harris, we are seeing her up and running. She is going to places, and of course, she is very vibrant, and she is being received by US people more, with the open hands. Rather, they were doing it to Biden, because I think Biden somehow wasn't making sense at all. Do you think that Kamala Harris is there to put up an excellent fight against Trump, who's been dubbed as someone who's already doing excellent?
That is for sure that the way Trump had gained its trajectory of popularity after the attack on him, that has declined. And there are about 3, 4 factors why it has declined. In fact, the people and the analysts were the feeling that Donald Trump has a very big advantage. One, that the sympathy vote. Two, that the way he is polarized, 61% of the population of the United States, they have become their permanent voters, supporters in the constituency. And he is going to care less about the Muslim votes and about the black votes and all that, because he knows that his constituency is secure and he would be able to pocket those votes and he would be able to make it. And the polls had started showing that at that time. But subsequently, a decision, and a very smart decision by the Democrats, of changing the presidential candidate with Kamala Harris. And Kamala Harris, probably the first lady of color, black lady as they say, but the lady of color, and the first lady president of the United States. The possibility of that is now gaining its strength. That is one. And what are the reasons for it? What edge? One, that she seems quite vibrant in terms of, although Trump had demonstrated even after the attack on him, the way he would raise his fist, it became the symbol of the Republicans there and the polarized society of these white supremacists, And some of the swing votes also started appreciating it, and swing states. But now the campaign, and a very well planned campaign of Kamala Harris, 3, 4 factors here. One, that the very first 24 hours, she was able to have about more than 200 million donation or something close to that. And second, that she showed more vibrancy. She was more agile to really start with the campaign. And third, she started attracting people of color. And fourth, that she has started addressing, which normally Democrats do that, addressing the problems of the grassroots people. And then regardless of their class, creed, and color. So these are a couple of things which is giving her advantage. And therefore, she is now coming very close to those ties of the competition, even in the Wisconsin and the other states, which are the swing states. So from that standpoint, we should draw one conclusion, or we should try and find out what difference is it going to make to the Middle Eastern situation, or the situation here, the containment of China. Is there going to be any change in the policy? My take is perhaps that is very difficult, because United States policy, although Trump do try and do the knee-jerk decisions and try and just deviate from the recommendations and from the proposals of the establishment, but Democrats have their very set pattern. They go by the established norms of decision making, which means the Pentagon input, the State Department input, and there comes the Israeli influence also. So it is equally asserted, or is equally seen, while Trump was in power and he shifted for the first time against all the Security Council resolutions, his embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, which was against all the United Nations Security Council resolutions, and along they also brought a few more countries. It was Trump's time that Golan Heights, which is a disputed territory recognized by the United Nations, and that was bilaterally recognized by the United States, that it's the territory of Israel. If we have that in our mind, and then see that if Trump wins, the policy doesn't seem that the policy would change. The support would continue. The military asset and deployment would continue. And secondly, the chances and probability and possibility of attack on Israel particularly on its nuclear assets, are going to be little higher than as compared to the Kamala Harris and its team. They are in par. So that is one aspect. Second aspect is the Middle East and the
Yeah.
Gaza war.
Well,
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Jamil. I would obviously, we have this very short time, and I want to go towards Umar. Umar, just wanted to know, as you are someone always hawking upon foreign policy, of course, you are someone anxiously waiting for September debate between Kamala Harris and Trump. What are your expectations? Will they be fighting on the screen live, as we are seeing right now? One is calling other coward, and the other word I don't want to mention here. What are your expectations right now?
I think that if the Trump campaign doesn't change their tactics and doesn't change those tactics in a revolutionary manner, Trump would be in a very difficult debate with a person who is by profession an established attorney. So she's not somebody who will go down with Trump as maybe President Biden went in the first debate. And I guess that the usual Trump theatrics, they will not be able to win him any new voters or any fence sitting voters. This is the problem for Trump. He is just sticking by his own base. And Harris is making all the right points, all the right, you can say, moves, whether political or discursive. And in the debate, it will be interesting if the Trump campaign comes up with some policy initiatives that can actually put Harris in a tough corner. Actually, it can be possible that they have some policy initiatives, but Trump, because he is such a person, he just goes into his own ramblings and calling out names and calling out the other person different things rather than actually focusing on what sort of policy dynamics he would be bringing. So I guess that in this debate and even in previous debates, not with the exception of the previous one, Trump has been his own biggest enemy. And I think with a person, a candidate like Kamala, and with the Democratic Party solidly getting behind her, it seems a bit of an uphill now for Trump.
Very true. Thank you very much, Umar and Dr. Jamil, joining us today. Thanks ever so much for that. And for the last question, I'll head towards my very fine colleague, whom I always see towards when it comes to, of course, American politics. On X, I always follow you. Of course, you are someone eyeing upon American elections as well. One thing I wanted to learn from you today, that right now we are seeing campaign at full-fledged. Of course, the American media is involved as well, as Trump is criticizing American media's surveys as well. They are openly saying that, of course, American media, few of the top channels, they are siding with the Democrats rather than Republican, or at least being fair. I want your comment, Farrukh, on this, whether Trump is right about saying this or claiming this, or it's situation entirely different.
Right. Thank you very much, my very fine younger colleague, Raja Faisal, for that very kind introduction. Let me very quickly actually talk about, by the way, with your permission, I wanted to address another thing that might not be an issue in Pakistan or in South Asia, but in the US it has become an issue, and that is how to pronounce the name of the American vice president. And some people are like Camelot are calling her Kamala, the others are Kamala. Now there's a confusion because there was a Marvel series in which a character, Pakistani character was there, was called Kamala. The two are different, right? The Pakistani version is about Kamal, something that is fantastic, something that happens, right? And Kamla is particularly a derivative of, Kamla, which is the lotus flower. So it will be great if people could stick to the pronunciation that the vice president herself prefers, and this is usually how it goes. You could have called me Farrukh, but you call me Farrukh because I prefer that way.
Yeah.
Now, regarding the American, by the way, DNC is also starting today. Within a few hours, we are going to see AOC and others speaking there as well, and that will be great. But regarding what is happening with the US media, we have seen that there is dishonesty that went on. They lost their balance somewhere between Obama administration and Trump administration's time. And what they have done now to President Biden is horrible, right? And that is totally agenda driven. It was obnoxious. CNN was the worst player in that, and I'm sure that in coming they are going to pay through their nose. But regarding the overall state of affairs, whether it is Trump's allegation or Democrats, we know that the momentum has started building, and Vice President Kamala Harris has done amazing job. I have the survey of RCP, right? Survey of surveys, where she has taken a lead of 1.4%. And then in battleground states, there used to be more than 2% of margin. And do you know how much margin is there? 0.1 in favor of Trump. That is going to further go down.
Yeah.
So I think that, and her choice of vice presidential candidate is also great. So this is my take. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Farrukh. Unfortunately, time is short. And that's it, viewers, for today. Farrukh, thanks ever so much. Both of our guests, other esteemed guests, thanks ever so much for as well. And the viewers, thank you so much for watching us today. See you tomorrow.